Now, of course, he's been saying over and over again that he's self-funding, he's funding his own campaign. That's what makes him very popular. But now there's an attack on him saying, listen, you know what? You've been pretty cozy with some of these super PACs. Take a listen.
I've spent the least money and I have the best poll numbers. And that's pretty good. I mean,
but
I'm proud of that.
You spent the least and
you have the best. I'm not controlled by lobbyists. I'm not controlled by special interests or donors.
So today, of course, there's a report in the Washington Post that Trump himself has a lot of ties to these big money super PACs. Trump, of course, denying the report, and reportedly threatening to sue that particular newspaper. Christopher, last week we got some final third quarter numbers on fundraising. Donald Trump almost raised $4 million. He didn't solicit this money, but it did come in. A lot of questions as to whether or not he should give that money back, and now perhaps ties to these super PACs. What do you make of it?
Well, yeah, he denied it, and he threatened to sue that newspaper, but he gave speeches at events held by that super PAC, which he said, and his lawyers are going to say, that's not me saying it, these represent me. Fine, that's okay. Donald Trump is not going to give it back, and this is the kind of thing where a lot of politicians would get tripped up and apologize, but he calls John McCain not a war hero and refuses to apologize, and everyone just forgets about it. There's no chance he's going to apologize over this super PAC stuff.
All right, but here's the thing, Mark. Ultimately, let's say that Donald Trump makes the entire run. He's the nominee. Some money's got to be accepted from somewhere, unless he is indeed going to write a check for $1 to $2 billion out of his own pocket.
Absolutely. I think that's the key point here, Charles, is look, Jeb Bush is still a very viable candidate, largely because he's sitting on $100 million from his super PAC. And the super PAC between him and his campaign have been very cozy all along. And you know what? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Trump, on the other hand, I hope that super PACs support him. I hope millionaires and billionaires, as Bernie Sanders says, support Trump. He's going to need it starting in February. Look, Bush is going to use a lot of the $100 million on Donald Trump, and he may be damaged, at some point during the primaries. I hope that super PACs back him. Whatever connection there may be with the campaign, I don't think is relevant. And who's asking about Hillary's super PACs and who's supporting her?
But Hillary, everyone else running is saying they are accepting donations. So you're saying it's okay if the super PACs are at arm's length for them to raise the $1 billion, and that technically Trump is not accepting money, even though $1 billion is being spent on his behalf. That would be fine with the public. That has embraced him in part because he won't have any allegiance or he won't owe anybody anything.
I think GOP primary voters won't care at all, and that's ultimately the judge.
How do you feel about that, Mercedes?
Amen. I agree. I mean, I don't think they're going to care because at this point, it gets so complicated when you're throwing out super PAC versus campaigns. Like us DC insider folks, yeah, we love talking the jargon. But when you look outside the Beltway, they don't care. They're seeing a man who's self-financing his campaign.
But is he self-financing it if somebody else is writing checks?
But it doesn't matter because guess what? These groups, there are 4 of them, super PACs that have filed with the FEC, the Federal Elections Commission, that are helping Trump. And so I don't think it's going to impact him at the end of the day. They got to play by the rules, but that's where you're going to see a lot of these interesting videos coming out in support of Trump. And again, I think the super PACs have played that role.
I totally agree with Mercedes. And I also say that the money that was reported that has been raised unwittingly by his campaign into the campaign committee, to me, is the sign of a movement candidate. 75,000 contributions of $50 average came from people that they didn't even solicit it from. To me, that's the sign of a movement candidate, almost like Barack Obama, not quite at that level, in 2008. A movement candidate can be very dangerous to the establishment on both sides.
There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. But if someone running against him does not say, hey, you're not just covering this yourself, they would be nuts. Okay. Thanks a lot, guys.
Donald Trump will sue him, so don't worry.
All right,